Hey Tara, how you doing?
Good, Sally. It's so great to see you.
You too. How are you feeling? How's this week been? Are you feeling liberated?
Yes, freedom.
He said he was going to do it. He's done it. He's a
Right.
man of his word.
He loves tariffs. He says it. Tariffs, one of the most beautiful words. I mean, he means it.
It's Donald Trump's favorite word, and we've got a guest this week who's going to be able to make it sound a lot more interesting for us and break down
Sexy
all the
tariffs.
all the complicated stuff and speak to us in like simple language. Liberation Day, that's what Donald Trump's called it. How's it going
Right.
down over there?
I think a lot of people expect that he'll pull back on a lot of these tariffs. I did talk to Mark Cuban last week, and he said that he's hopeful that this is all reversible, but he has no doubt that it will take the U.S. into a short-term recession. That'll really impact the middle class and Trump's white working class voters. But the thing with Trump is like he is in just this information silo. And the truth is that Republicans from the top down in the House and Senate, they're so afraid of him that they're afraid to tell him what their constituents are saying and feeling and how they fear their businesses will be impacted.
Yeah, and Tara, it's not just hurting the average person. The tech bros are also really feeling this. Elon Musk lost $11 billion in the first day of Donald Trump's tariffs, according to Bloomberg. And I really want to ask you about the bromance. You've done some fascinating reporting that the Elon Musk-Donald Trump bromance is fizzling out. We all want to know more. But before we get to that, let's just bring in British journalist and business presenter Ian King, who can talk more about Donald Trump's favorite word, tariffs. Hi, Ian. How are you?
Hello, good to see you, Sally.
So good to see you. I'm really glad you've come on because you're one of the best people I know at explaining all of this complicated stuff in a really simple way and making what seemingly is boring really interesting. So people hear the word tariff and they switch off. Tell us why this is actually such big news this week.
Well, a tariff is essentially a tax. Basically, this is going to push up the cost of selling imported goods in the US. So these are without doubt the biggest tariffs that the US has imposed on imports since probably the First World War.
How is that going to impact us as regular people? How are we going to feel that?
Well, it will impact everyone. The people it will most impact, to be honest with you, are consumers in the United States. But if you take, for example, a company like Nike, a lot of its manufacturing is done in Vietnam, and he's just slapped a tariff of 46% on Vietnam. Now, are Nike going to move manufacturing their running shoes and their sports gear back to the United States? Probably not, because Vietnam has a comparative advantage in that. Not least the fact that wages are much, much lower there. And are Americans going to want to take up relatively low-paid jobs in terms of making sneakers and so forth in the United States? Probably not. So that's one of the big flaws in what he's proposing.
So for the average American, are their Nikes going to cost more in a couple of weeks' time?
Probably not in a couple of weeks' time, because there will be inventory that the likes of Nike have already shipped across to the United States. But certainly by the third quarter of this year, you would expect to see higher prices coming through. And certainly a lot of economists accordingly are adjusting their inflation forecast for the US for the year.
What about for the rest of us, Ian, that aren't in the States? You know, we keep hearing about this global trade war. What does that mean? And how is the rest of the world going to be impacted by this?
Well, there are loads of uncertainties here, Sally, because we don't know at the moment how other countries are going to respond to what Trump has done. But you've already heard, for example, Ursula von der Leyen hinting that the EU will introduce reciprocal tariffs. And that's when you really do get into a nasty trade war. It's terrible for global growth. Potentially, it means that consumers end up paying more for imported American products. One of the old expressions, and it actually dates back to the aftermath of the Wall Street crash, is that when the US economy sneezes, the global economy catches a cold.
How long are we going to have this cold for, do you think, Ian? Do you think it's going to linger, or do you think it's something we'll be able to get over fairly quickly?
As I say, there are lots of real unknowns about this. We don't know the extent to which other economies are going to retaliate with reciprocal tariffs on the US.
Yeah.
And that is why you're seeing these big sell-offs in global stock markets. We knew that Trump was going to announce tariffs. I hesitate to use Liberation Day because that's his term. It's not one that anyone else should necessarily be using. When he announced it, the tariffs that he imposed were by and large slightly worse than people had been expecting. But I've just heard Jim O'Neill, the former chief economist at Goldman Sachs, talking about this. I mean, he was saying, well, the rest of the G7 should basically just get together and start to lower tariffs between themselves, and that is a way of mitigating the damage. The question is how the Trump administration would respond to that. I mean, it would take that as quite a hostile act.
Really interesting stuff, Ian. I feel like we're going to have you back to explain more on this, because definitely the story has a long way to run. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been great to have you, and we'll see you soon.
Pleasure. Thanks, Sally.
Thanks, Ian. Well, I definitely learned something there, Tara. Ian's so good at that. Certainly, there's a lot of uncertainty. If prices do go up for the average American when it comes to like sneakers, as Ian was talking about, suddenly costing a lot more to buy their Nikes or their Adidas sneakers. How long do you think he's got before that starts to become a real problem for Donald Trump?
First of all, I love that you said Adidas, because in America we call it Adidas.
But I said Nike instead of Nike.
Do they say Nike in the UK?
Yeah, some people do.
Oh my God, I love it.
I know, it's such a hybrid.
Yeah, no.
Such a hybrid. Yeah,
it will be.
I won't digress.
Trump will be the Grinch this Christmas if these tariffs continue onward. I saw a report that Apple iPhones that were produced in the U.S. could cost as much as $3,500 per phone. It's crazy.
Wow.
Now, I want to ask you, what's it like over there in Dubai? What are people saying?
I think it's really uncertain right now. I was chatting to one trader earlier who works here for an investment company. He is former Goldman Sachs. He says he doesn't see these tariffs going away. I said, is this just a strategy by Donald Trump? Do you think that he is just doing this in order to get better deals with other countries, or are they here to stay? He thinks they're here to stay. He said he doesn't see this becoming a global recession, but it could certainly push America into recession, and it will probably hurt Americans more than people elsewhere.
I agree. I mean, we certainly rely on, there was a huge trade deficit. Trump wasn't wrong. We have huge trade deficits with the rest of the world. So it will probably impact us the most. I was just wondering if people there, like on the ground, are saying, oh, wow, everything's going to cost more. But I imagine it's already pretty expensive in Dubai to live there.
I bought a new iPhone recently. It wasn't eye-wateringly expensive. It wasn't a huge amount more than you would probably pay in the US. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that all changes. But certainly, for ages, Apple products have been so cheap to buy in America compared with other countries. And it sounds like that's going to change. And I think, that's a big gamble for Donald Trump, right? It's going to hurt the average American. But also, his long-term goal is to improve the American economy and to create jobs. I guess it's whether that will actually happen. If you bring manufacturing back to the US, it's going to be more expensive, right? Because labor is more expensive than it is in countries in Asia or in China. So I'm not sure how realistic this plan is. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
I'm not an expert, but this is kind of what I'm picking up.
Yeah, I don't think you can bring back, factories in overnight. You can't just snap your fingers and start a whole and have an entire facility that's humming with employees, and it takes years, possibly a decade, I'm sure, to bring back all that manufacturing.
But the thing I really want to ask you about before we finish is Elon Musk and Donald Trump. What's going on, Tara? You've been reporting on this a lot. Is the bromance over? Is it fizzling out? Is Elon Musk on his way out?
3 or 4 weeks ago, I wrote about how there was a boiling resentment towards Elon Musk from the staff, cabinet officials, everyone really top down, except for Donald Trump. He was the only one who was still hanging on to Elon Musk. Elon Musk is extremely dismissive and he treats people terribly. But on top of that, his poll numbers are sinking. He is universally unliked. He was disregarding, the concerns of the cabinet secretaries, treating them like messenger boys, and trying to cut into crucial programs like at the Federal Aviation Association, where, they have air traffic controllers that keep us safe, and at State Department, et cetera. So he did not make any friends, and his time is up. Donald Trump just told Inner Circle, according to some new reports from Politico, that Elon Musk is leaving earlier than they even thought. He was supposed to stay on for 130 days as a special government employee. That allowed him to not divest from his companies while working in government. Turns out he's leaving even earlier than that. And this is after giving Trump $100 million.
Wow. What are you hearing, Tara? Why is he leaving early? That's quite telling, isn't it?
The timing's interesting, Sal. Okay, think about this. You had a judicial race in Wisconsin where Elon Musk made himself front and center. He made it about him. Spends about more than $20 million on a race. It was one of the most expensive judicial races in a battleground state where typically races are only won by a few points because it's a purple state. Trump just won it by a very narrow margin. And the liberal judge wins overwhelmingly by 10 points. Unheard of, really, in Wisconsin. And whose name was really on the ballot for the Republicans? It was Elon Musk. Democrats have found a new boogeyman in Elon Musk. It's like how Republicans talk about George Soros. That's how Democrats are talking about Elon Musk. And so
you described him as Trump's heat shield, right?
Yes, exactly. But
such a good term. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, go for it. But the thing is, though, that now that Elon Musk's on his way out, the stories for so long have been about Elon Musk and the chaos he's creating with Doge. The stories are going to shift to Trump now. He may miss Elon Musk a little bit.
True. But on top of that, even if Elon Musk disappears, and that's great news for so many people who despise working with him, you've reported that Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, he treats her like a secretary. There doesn't seem to be any love lost there, right? He's done a lot of damage. And I guess the question is any of that repairable?
I think with government, it's really hard to do anything. It's hard to build back government. Somehow he was able to tear it down, but to do anything, the bureaucracy is so clunky. And I don't think there's a political will right now.
But, in less than 100 days in office, he has already done so much. You have to give him that, Tara. And I'm sure it feels like he's been there for a couple of years already. How are you holding up?
I'm very tired.
I remember being in the US the last Trump administration, so 4 years ago when he was in power the first time in the White House. And I remember calling it the Trump treadmill, when you'd wake up in the morning and he'd send out a crazy tweet about something at 5 a.m. and your day just changed. And I remember just how exhausting it was. And I remember when Biden won thinking, oh my God, I am not going to miss the Trump treadmill. I am so tired. And you're back on it. I can sense that, you need to kind of keep refilling the tank.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't stop. It's a crazy time we're living in. I don't actually agree with that Goldman Sachs banker. I think that Trump is only going to do this for about a month while he tries to get better deals. Yeah.
I mean, my sense is it's a strategy rather than a long-term thing. But what do I know? I guess, Donald Trump's unpredictable. Do you think he knows himself yet?
Yeah. He does know himself.
Or is he just going to wait and see?
He just follows whatever the last person in the room told him to do, or whatever he thinks is the best idea. So, but he has loved tariffs forever, so his heart beats quickly for tariffs. Sal,
well, I guess we'll leave it there.
Fun.
Look,
and
dot, to be continued.
And all feelings, at the same time.
I mean, tariffs is not the most sexy subject, but I feel like we're going to be revisiting this one.
Makes me anxious, so I think it's an important one.
Yeah. Listen, really good to see you. And thanks to everyone who's tuning in and watching as we continue with our new show, State of the World. This is episode, how many have we done now? Is this 3?
We're on 3.
This is the 3rd.
Smash that subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button and share this with your friends. Most importantly, subscribe and share this. We'll be back again.
Thanks so much, guys. Bye, Tara.
Bye.